Author Jeff Johns and artists Jason Fabok and Brad Anderson have introduced the idea of there being multiple Jokers to the DC universe. In one night, there were 3 Joker attacks throughout Gotham City, each one caught on camera. Suspecting that this was a Joker and some copycats, Batman, Batgirl, and the Red Hood investigated. During the course of that investigation, they managed to subdue one of the Jokers, referred to as the Clown, and in a fit of anger, the Red Hood killed him. Knowing that left 2 Jokers on the loose, the investigation continued, eventually leading Batman and Batgirl to the prison cell of Joe Chill, the man who killed Bruce Wayne's parents. Before they could figure out why, though, they were summoned back to the Red Hood's side. He had been captured by the 2 surviving Jokers, and they beat him with a crowbar, hoping to drive him into becoming a new Joker. Instead, the Bat family pulled together. They went over the facts of the case, solidifying the 3 various times in Batman's history that these Jokers were active, and they also learned that there have been multiple Jokers throughout the years before this incident. The Red Hood and Batgirl both pressed Batman to know if he knew the Joker's real identity, and Batman said no, he did not. An emergency alert at Blackgate Penitentiary drew them back out. The Jokers had kidnapped Joe Chill, and clues found there sent them on to the Monarch Theater, the place where little Bruce Wayne watched The Mask of Zorro with his parents on the night that they died. Inside the theater, the Bat family confronted the 2 remaining Jokers. Batman managed to save the life of Joe Chill, who the criminal Joker was hoping to Jokerize. Through their interactions, Batman saw that Chill was truly sorry for his actions that night, and this revelation nearly cost him. The criminal, strapped with dynamite, prepared to blow them all up. Elsewhere in the Monarch, Batgirl and the Red Hood were distracted by Jokerized bellhops before they finally encountered the Comedian, and Batgirl beat his face in. The Comedian managed to escape from them, though, and it's a good thing that he did, because he went on to kill the criminal, shooting him in the head, saving Batman and Joe Chill. The Comedian then surrendered to Batman. And we aren't done yet. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown episode 15.5, Batman 3 Jokers. Did any of this matter? Once again, Gotham's emergency services are called out into a rainy night. They bounce from Blackgate Penitentiary to the Monarch Theater now. When we come back into the story, Batman and the Joker are already gone, heading to Arkham Asylum. Jason complains about being left behind, about the Joker still being alive, about being asked to take the Batmobile back home. Batgirl just tells him to stop. He, meaning Bruce, is trying. He's entrusting the Red Hood with the Batmobile and trusting him to take it back to the secret Batcave, and that is not something that Batman does with just anyone. Maybe you could try a little more too, she says to him. Jason stammers as he asks her if maybe they could try again. Batgirl turns, but this time she doesn't look him in the eyes. She's learned her lesson. She looks to the side and tells him that he is interpreting what happened between them incorrectly. She's sorry, meaning that she's sorry that he misread her care for him as affection, as attraction. Jason stumbles out an apology too, clearly embarrassed and probably hurt. He gets into the Batmobile and leaves. Commissioner Gordon approaches Batgirl, asking if she's okay. He knows that facing the Joker couldn't have been easy for her. He then tells her that he supports her as much as he supports Batman, but the Red Hood isn't someone that she should be involved with. Batgirl climbs onto her motorcycle. Who she's involved with isn't really his business. Dad. Then she drives off. And isn't that interesting? Back in Book 1, when the Commissioner offered Batgirl a ride to the Apoca murder, she turned him down. This led to Batman questioning whether or not Gordon knew that Barbara was Batgirl, and she said that her father didn't know. We now know that she was lying. But what does that mean? Barbara clearly trusts Bruce as she follows his lead throughout this whole series and actually tells the Red Hood to trust him several times. But clearly, she doesn't trust him enough to tell him that her father knows about her being Batgirl. So maybe she trusts her father more than she trusts Batman. Given what we're about to see happen with Bruce in a few scenes, it is possible that Johns is hinting that Barbara is more like Batman than she, or we, like to think, but I'm honestly not sure on this one. This is a weird last-minute reveal that doesn't really have time to go anywhere, so we kind of just have to live with it. And, of course, we get to see Barbara turn Jason down, again. She employs a little bit more of the Batman mystique in this rebuttal, though. She's not looking into his eyes or face at all. Every other time that she has dealt with Jason, she has looked into his eyes. So this is a really nice artistic way for Fabok to show that Barbara is keeping up the wall a little better this time. Across town, a police escort, including multiple cop cars and a helicopter, take the Joker to Arkham. Sitting inside the armored transport with the Joker is a quiet, thoughtful Batman. In his mind, Bruce sees Joe Chill as he was all those years ago, holding a gun at him. But now there's an added whisper of "I truly am sorry." Bruce's reverie is interrupted by the Joker, though, as he starts to talk. After all of that drama, he says, "Don't you feel better, Bruce?" A controlled, emotionless calm passes over Batman's face. The Joker continues. "Yeah, that's right. Bruce Wayne, Barbara Gordon, Jason Todd. He knows all of their real names, but don't worry, it's okay. He'll never tell. Bruce might stop being Batman if he does, and they can't have that." Batman doesn't move at all. He asks the Joker what he wants. The Joker then goes into it. The clown just wanted to laugh at the suffering of others. And isn't that what we all do, really? So common, so boring. The criminal was the one who wanted to make a better Joker, and let me tell you, that's crazy. A defined Joker, one who means something? That isn't what the Joker is. That would ruin the very definition of the Joker. "Bet he regrets making me," the Joker says. "Or do I regret making him?" Then he laughs. Batman presses on, getting annoyed. What's the punchline here? The Joker leans in. There is no punchline. This isn't a joke. There's no final twist here. At least, not until the Joker can stab Batman in the heart. No, he is chaos. He is undefined. The criminal couldn't make a better Joker because the Joker is fine as he is. But the Batman... Now, there's a man who's broken. Batman is the one driven by a pain greater than anything that the Joker could do to him. So, he suggested the idea of Chill as a Joker to the others, and they bought it. Everything else pretty much went like he thought it would. Batman saved Chill, that sad sack of a man. He felt Chill's remorse, and in feeling it, he forgave him. The Joker healed Batman's greatest wound. And now he can be that wound. The Joker will cut him, hurt him, torture him from now until they die together. That laughter follows Bruce into the next day. We find him standing over Chill's hospital bed, one of his letters in hand. This is actually him, Bruce Wayne, not the Batman, and Chill reaches out a shaking hand. Bruce clasps it. The heart monitor flatlines. Joe Chill dies, a forgiven man. We then cut to Bruce examining Joe Chill's gravestone sometime later. There we have it, folks. The plan behind the plan. Johns uses the Joker to reveal that all of this was a setup to free Bruce of the specter that is Joe Chill, allowing him to be more tortured by the Joker going forward. The pain of his parents' murder is obviously a huge motivating factor for Bruce. It's the very reason why he became Batman so long ago, and as demonstrated earlier in Book 1, Bruce still hasn't gotten over it. But here, Bruce finally sees Chill not as a monster who killed his parents, not as an irredeemable criminal who wished nothing but harm upon the world, but as a man. One who made a terrible mistake and has spent every moment since paying for it. He believes it, and so he forgives him. I love that Bruce actually visited Chill in the hospital, reading one of those carefully written letters that Chill tried so hard to finish, but couldn't. After all, how could a child forgive the man who killed his parents? And Bruce forgives him, because he believes that Chill really has repented. This is why Batman doesn't kill the criminals that he fights. Maybe repentance is rare, but when it happens, that is so much better than murder. And it is so satisfying as an audience member to get to see it. Our final scene is a mix of things all running together, so I'm going to clean up the narrative a bit and focus on one at a time. This is just a warning that this isn't how it is presented in the book, but I'm still going to give you all the important stuff, don't you worry. We open on Bruce as he puts away the Joker files. He tells Alfred that even if Jason did kill the Jokers, it would never be over for him and Barbara. They would still be haunted by what happened to them, driven by it. Bruce knows this better than most, and it's very telling to me that he says this after talking to his victimizer and forgiving him. What Jason and Barbara need isn't revenge, it's absolution, it's closure. And given that their pain stems from the Joker, they may never get it. We find Barbara back in the gym, running on another treadmill. The one that she broke back in book 1 sits to her left, but that isn't important anymore. Barbara is going to keep pushing forward. She's leaving the damage in the past and pushing herself to improve. Narration in the form of a note begins as we check in on Barbara. It's from Jason, and he tapes it to her apartment door. In the note, Jason says that he wants to change, but that he can't do it without her. He admires her strength, her determination, her heart, and maybe she sees their kiss as a mistake, but Jason thinks that they could be great together. For her, he'll change. He can give up being the Red Hood. He can be something else. Maybe he can just be Jason. He will devote his whole life to making her safe, happy, and proud of him. All he needs is a chance to prove it. And if she doesn't feel the same, then that's okay. He'll understand. Won't ever mention it again. Quote, "Whatever happens, I love you. Yours, Jason." End quote. The tape detaches from the door. The note falls to the ground. A janitor sweeps it away. Never to be read. And that got me. I had totally forgotten how much this moment tore me up when I first read this book. And if you can hear the tears in my voice, know that they're real. I am not an actor. I'm just an overly invested geek. And man, this letter breaks my heart. I said before that Jason very much feels like the center of this story for 2 of the books, and clearly Johns has done a very good job of investing me in his story. I wouldn't be crying otherwise. We saw in book 2 that Jason was unwilling to become a Joker. He doesn't want that. Maybe he's not a great hero, but he isn't a monster either. And then earlier in book 3, he tells Barbara that he'll stop killing Jokers for her. And here those ideas culminate in that note. Jason is willing to change, but not for Bruce, and not because it's healthier for him, but for her. And on the one hand, that's very romantic and heartbreaking, but like I said when the kiss happened, it's also super toxic. It's not Barbara's job or her role to make Jason a better person. We all have to do that for ourselves. For example, Joe Chill spent years learning to read and write so that he could apologize to Bruce Wayne, despite thinking that he deserved death and punishment, never expecting forgiveness at all. Chill just wanted to do the right thing and apologize. And ultimately, Jason isn't willing to do the right thing. And sadly, that's why he's still the Red Hood. Knowing that Jason says that if she doesn't agree that it's okay, he'll never bring it up again, just makes it even sadder for me. Barbara didn't even get to see the note, and part of me is like, thank God for that. Barbara has a big heart, and I think that it would absolutely tear her up inside to have Jason basically hold his morality ransom in exchange for her love. She knows that she doesn't love him. That's why she sets him straight after the kiss. That's why she turns him down at the end of that Joker scene. But she also wouldn't want to keep him suffering. From a writing perspective, this is a really mean moment, but God, I love it. It plays right into each of these characters' strengths and weaknesses, and it leaves us knowing that maybe something could have been done, but that it never will. This is also a good way to keep Batman 3 Jokers free from modern continuity as well. Remember, as a graphic novel series, this book couldn't be tied to a specific run, or volume, or moment in Batman history. This needed to be able to be inserted anywhere. And Johns just gave future writers an out if they don't want to acknowledge Jason's feelings for Barbara or Barbara's intentional and accidental snubs of Jason's heart. If you had been reading Batgirl or the Red Hood's then ongoing series and you didn't see this relationship referenced, that's fine. This relationship and this story wouldn't be referenced, not until someone could read the whole series and then decide whether or not they wanted to acknowledge it. And this is a pretty smart way of doing that. We move to Alaska. And remember at the end of book 2 when Batman looked to the globe and then it zoomed in on Alaska? We're about to find out why. So we're in Alaska, and Bruce Wayne is dressed warmly in black, driving a Jeep through the twisty mountain roads. He stops at a small, nice house in the middle of nowhere, its yellow lights warm as the sun sets. He doesn't go inside, though. He does exit the Jeep and stand by it, staring through the front window. As he does, his thoughts return to earlier, when he was packing things up with Alfred. His old friend remarks that it's sad how so much hate can come from one man that no one really knows anything about. Will they ever know who the Joker really is? Bruce replies that he doesn't want to sound like a joke, but come on, he's Batman. He has known the Joker's true identity since a week after their first encounter. And Alfred is like, what? So now we get another flashback. A woman who matches the woman that we saw in the comedian's domestic life fantasy at the start of book 2 is in mid-argument with a thin man. He feels like she's judging him because he didn't find a job, because he won't be able to provide for their baby. Well, he's worried about it too. He cares, and he starts to get into her face about it. He doesn't hit her, not here at least, but he is definitely angry and she is clearly scared. We move to another scene, although I won't lie, I'm not exactly sure where it's happening at. The woman is standing now, wearing a simple dress, but she is also wearing a big trench coat over her pregnant stomach. Tears stream down her face as she speaks to 2 police officers. She tells them that he'll never let her go, not willingly, and she's afraid that he'll hurt the baby. One of the cops tells her not to worry. The boys have put some money together. They'll find some way to help her. We cut again, this time to Father being spoken to by another police officer. The cop tells him that there was an accident at his home this morning. His wife was testing a baby bottle warmer and there was some kind of electrical short, and she died. I'm sorry. Meanwhile, another officer helps the woman climb onto a departing train. She turns to thank him, and we transition to the now, where she stands in the kitchen, calling to her son. He enters the kitchen and they sit down to eat dinner. Bruce's conversation with Alfred picks up again now. No one other than Bruce can ever know the Joker's real identity. If it ever leaked, this family would never know peace again. The press would find them, the Joker would find them. So yes, he does know the Joker's real identity, but that's not what matters. It never has been. And so ends the saga of Batman 3 Jokers. The true identity of the Joker and whether or not Batman knew of it is something that fans have been debating for years. Personally, I've always leaned towards the idea that the Joker's real name and background doesn't matter. There's nothing in his background that would stop him at this point, as the only things that matter to him are Batman and himself. But I can understand why fans would want Batman to know. Hell, I understand why people in general would want to know. As human beings, we don't like mysteries, we like answers. And here, while still keeping some mystery around it, Johns does give us the Joker's background. But he also provides a reason why it's unimportant. And I love that it isn't even for the classical reasons, that the who of the Joker isn't important as who he is now, but rather, it's to protect this family. Batman doesn't keep the Joker's identity from his fellow heroes or his protégés because it isn't important. He does it so that this woman and her child can live in peace. Normally, Batman shows up after a crime is committed, but thankfully, he's been able to prevent one from happening here. For once, Batman gets to stand between an innocent family and pure evil, and he defends them without them even knowing it. A dark night indeed. If there's any question in your mind that the comedian, who is our only surviving Joker at the end of this story, is the original Joker, then this scene should put that to rest. Remember, in Book 2, the comedian experiences a break with reality that shows us his dream family life, and the woman that we saw there is identical to the woman that we see here. The boy that we saw there matches the boy that we see here. This is his family, one that he never got a chance to be with. That delusion that we saw is the Joker's continuation of what he thinks his life should have been. A life that was stolen from him. I would argue that this loss is what drives the Joker. In the same way that losing his parents drives Bruce Wayne, the loss of this family is what drove that man to a life of crime, what drove him to fighting Batman, which then drove him into a vat of acid. I think that Johns is suggesting that the Joker fixates on Batman in order to forget this pain, and since Batman is the only thing that he gets to focus on, he wants the Joker to be the only thing that Batman can focus on. This is super fascinating to me. I love this ending. It's weird, though, because while I love what this ending reveals both about the Joker and Batman, it also feels oddly out of place. It doesn't really feel earned. This story honestly hasn't been about Batman and the Joker's relationship, the why and how of their famous rivalry. It's been about Jason Todd and his trauma, Bruce Wayne and his trauma, and the plans of the three Jokers. This shift in focus doesn't really feel like it's been set up, like it feels kind of tagged on. Maybe if the comedian had been more of a character focus throughout this, maybe if we got to see him interacting with the other Jokers more, maybe if they highlighted his motivations a bit more. It's really hard to say because how much story can you do with a Joker without revealing more about that Joker and thus revealing your hand early? It's a real sticky writing situation. Having broken down this entire series, though, I can finally start to examine the very question that launched me back into these books. Does Batman the Three Jokers matter? And does it matter if it matters at all? To begin with, let me talk about the presentation of these books, because I didn't really get to talk about this in the other episodes. The Three Jokers is the same basic size of a standard comic book, but it definitely has more pages. Each book is about 60 pages long, so 3 times the length of a normal comic. And there are no ads. This is nothing but pure Bat content, baby. The covers, which are all drawn by Jason Fabok and colored by Brad Anderson, look great. They are simple and they're elegant. There are 5 covers per book, so 15 total, 3 of which are fairly rare variants, and 3 of which are focused on Batman, Batgirl, and the Red Hood. The rest of them are all Jokers, so find your favorite version of the Joker and buy that one. Given that I am not a big Joker fan, I just grabbed a copy off the shelf, and I was fine paying cover price, but for someone who likes the character more, this is a cool way to give them some more variety. The background of the image is a flat black, and honestly you generally can't see much of a background on the front cover anyways, because the Joker takes up so much space. But if you turn the book over, there is an embossed playing card in the center of the back. Each book has a different card. Book 1 is Batman, Book 2 is Batgirl, Book 3 is the Red Hood. Each of the heroes is paired with one of the Jokers, so it's cool to get to see everyone focused on. And there is a slight bonus, too, if you bought the books as they were coming out. Comic stores were given a promotional playing card, matching the card on the back of each book, to give away with the purchase of each comic. I'm a bit sad to see that at this point most shops either gave away all of the cards, or they're just selling them on eBay rather than pairing them with the comics that remain. While I'm not terribly focused on being a comic collector, I consider myself more of a reader. If I was getting Batman back issues and I wanted to get the cards paired with each book, I would have to buy those extra. I think that it's also important to point out that each of these books is $7, which admittedly is less than twice the price of a normal comic for 3 times the page amount with no ads. In any comic, that is not a bad deal. From a production standpoint, these 3 books are gorgeous. Artistically, artist Jason Fabok and colorist Brad Anderson do an amazing job throughout. I believe that Fabok both penciled and inked these issues, and that is quite a feat. These pages are packed with panels, details, and solid acting. Fabok uses a method similar to someone like Jim Lee, where he uses a bunch of smaller lines to sculpt faces and muscles, or to add texture to various items. Each Joker's face is carefully sculpted, and they feel real. When Barbara looks at Jason in Book 2, you can see the pain in her eyes, the sympathy that she has for him. There are also a ton of small facial reactions for Batman throughout this story. Fabok generally keeps Batman very stoic and calm, almost showing no emotion throughout. But, for example, when he is in the armored car with the Joker thinking about Joe Chill's apology, his mouth opens just a little bit, enough to show us that he is caught off guard by it. And when Joker starts talking, his mouth closes. Suddenly that openness is gone. He's hard. He's a wall again. Or when his brows lift ever so slightly when Chill thanks him for saving his life. All of the acting regarding Bruce in this is very subtle, it's very carefully done, but it is there. Fabok wields those reactions like a pro. The colors are great as well for a book that is largely set at night. You would think that these 3 books would just be like black and very little else, but no, there are careful highlights that match Fabok's smaller sculpting lines. I really want to complain that these books took 4 years to make, but here's the thing, now that they are finished and published, they're a part of Batman history. From here on out, whether they were timely or late isn't going to matter. Someone's going to be buying them from the back issue boxes, or in a collected format like a trade paperback, and again, they won't give a goddamn about how late it was originally. Books like A Death in the Family or The Killing Joke still sell today, despite being 30 plus years old because they are important and their trade paperbacks are easily found. Yeah, good luck finding original copies of those comics. As a story, though, it's a bit harder to judge this book. This series definitely had an emotional impact on me. I come out of this experience caring more about the Red Hood than I ever have before, and that's pretty great. Barbara gets some solid time to shine, and the story does do a great job of exploring the tension-filled relationship between our 3 lead heroes. However, this story also doesn't do anything with those characters, ultimately. Despite building a potential relationship between Barbara and Jason, this story also ends with there being no relationship between them. In fact, one half of them swore never to bring it up again, so it's unlikely that this is going to get followed up on. Bruce Wayne gets a nice moment of peace regarding Joe Chill, and that's pretty cool, but I won't lie, it's not like the specter of Joe Chill haunts Batman every issue of his ongoing books. Like, the fact that Joe Chill is the one who killed his parents is more like a piece of Batman trivia than it is an active, ongoing concern. I don't think that Chill ever came up during Scott Snyder's 53-issue run. I haven't seen anything in Tom King's run that references it, and that's over 100 issues, and so far I haven't seen anything in Tynion's current run at all. So it's not like freeing Bruce Wayne of Chill's ghost honestly affects the ongoing series of Batman. So, while I am emotionally affected while I'm reading the story, those feelings quickly fade upon finishing. As I mentioned before, I didn't remember Jason's note to Barbara at the end at all when I was reading this, and I was crying when I was rereading this. That's a hell of a thing to forget about. You don't watch the movie Up and then forget that the first 15 minutes of Up are going to break your heart. That doesn't happen. We also have the big matter of our title characters, the three Jokers. I have outright said that the things that I want to know about the Joker's existence don't really ever get addressed. Where do the various Jokers go when they're not torturing Batman? Who takes charge when they're working on a plan? Where do they live? How do they interact? How do they choose who gets to become a Joker? We get to see snippets of some of these ideas throughout the series, but we're not really given any concrete answers. If anything, Geoff Johns poses those questions and then leaves them open for someone else to explore. There is also the fact that this book is called Batman 3 Jokers, emphasis on the 3 Jokers part, and by the end of issue 1, that title's useless. In fact, by the end of the series, we are actually back to having 1 Joker, and that's a safe return to continuity that I'm sadly have come to expect out of American comic books. But for a story promising me 3 Jokers plaguing Batman, I was not impressed by the type of scheme that they came up with. This story does introduce the idea that the Joker can and does make more Jokers, implying that he could do so in the future, and that is not only frightening, but it does seem to be coming into play during Tynion's ongoing Joker series. I generally don't like to break down a book that is this new, as its place in Batman history is still being formed, but it looks like the 3 Jokers might be seeing some love. The reveal at the end here, that Bruce already knows the Joker's real identity, and has known for years, also invalidates him asking the Mobius chair the question that set this story into motion back in Justice League issue 50. If Batman has known the Joker's real name for years, then why would he ask the Mobius chair for the Joker's real name? I know that Batman was sitting in the Mobius chair, but that doesn't mean that we need to loop around endlessly. I have no explanation for this. I think it's just an honest-to-God storytelling mistake. And reading the 3 Jokers, you don't think about it at all. It's only because of the very detail-focused nature of these breakdowns that I even actually thought about it. It's totally forgettable otherwise. My hunt for an answer is subjective. To someone else, Batman 3 Jokers might be absolutely necessary for their Batman collection. Hell, it could be their favorite comic. To another person, this book might not mean anything at all. For a long time, I paid the Batman comics no mind at all, and I would have fallen into that category for sure. If I had walked into a comic store and the shop employee was like, "Hey man, check this out. It's by Geoff Johns, one of the best writers in the business, and it's gorgeous, and it's got Batman, and there are 3 Jokers in it. It's crazy. Wait until you see how the first one ends," I would have just brushed them off with a smile and a nod. Yeah, sure, real cool, man. Leave me to buy my X-Men comics, thank you, bye. As a relative newbie to buying Batman comics, I legitimately bought this more because I thought then it would matter than because I thought it would be a good read. And as of yet, I do think that it's a great read, but it doesn't matter. In my opinion, this is a masterfully executed, beautiful-looking comic book that is all filler. As I said before, it does look like Tynion might be exploring the idea that there are multiple Jokers during his Batman run, and if so, then that is going to automatically make this book matter. As I said, that's why I prefer to break down older comics. Their place in history is much more secure. But right now, as far as I'm concerned, no. Batman 3 Jokers doesn't matter. It is a good read, even if it doesn't stick the landing, but I would absolutely suggest reading any of the other Batman runs that I have mentioned throughout this series of episodes, more than reading this. The trade-off there is that 3 Jokers is a nice series that is easy to read, and it is generally outside of continuity. You can walk into a bookstore or a comic shop, pick up the trade of this, and read it with no problems at all. Any of the runs that I have referenced are very long, and they just aren't digestible in the same way. So if you're looking for a Batman fix, Batman 3 Jokers is a good way to get it. Whew. That was a doozy of a breakdown. Don't get me wrong, that was fun. The entire production method of this string of episodes has been very different from how I would normally write and produce any of the previous stuff. And I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with how this series turned out. Part of me is annoyed that it took me 5 episodes to cover basically 3 comic books, but whatever, they deserved it, honestly. As unimportant as I feel like these books are, they are good comics. And they're big comics too. Like I said, these are almost 3 times the length of a normal comic book, so I would say that this is time well spent. That does mean a changing of the gears though. I'm still not feeling a big, huge, long series of episodes, so I'm gonna keep my focus on some shorter stuff. In 2 weeks, we are going to begin to cover 2006's revival of Marvel's Eternals concept, written by Neil Gaiman and drawn by John Romita Jr. There aren't a lot of corners of the Marvel Universe that I haven't explored before, but I will fully admit that the Eternals are one of them. So this is going to be a pretty new experience for me, and hopefully for y'all. But, as I said, that'll be dropping in 2 weeks. That's because next week I will be running a special one-off episode. As I mentioned a few weeks back, I launched a Patreon account for Breakdown, and one of the perks of subscription is a monthly bonus episode in your podcast feed. So, next week, I'm going to release the first of those episodes here so you all can get a taste. Doing the research for these projects has been a lot of fun for me, so hopefully you all enjoy. Next week on Comic Book Breakdown, we'll have episode 16, or episode 1 of Breakdown Biographies, which is all about Stan the Man Lee. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me, to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.